Hi everybody, welcome back to the Quarter Acre Homestead. Today I'm going to show you the way that I trellis my tomatoes. Alright, so let's get started. There's a couple things that I focus on when I'm trellising my tomatoes. One, I want to make sure that they're not shaded, so tomatoes on the south side aren't shading the tomatoes on the north side, because tomatoes love sunshine, right? They want to be hot, and we already live in Washington State, so we have to make sure they get all the sunshine they can get. The other thing I think about is just whatever's easy. We're all busy, right? We all have better things to do than to be spending hours and hours with our tomatoes. So on that note, one thing you can keep in mind is, at least in some areas, tomato is really a weed. So it really grows really well, and you really don't have to worry about it that much. For example, I have friends, or I have one friend at least, I know of, who doesn't trellis their tomatoes at all. They just let the tomatoes sprawl out over the ground, and they get tomatoes, and I'm pretty sure they can them and everything, so that works great for them. But let me show you my method. So I have my tomatoes here behind me. So this is my, let's see, my beds are about 4 by 8 feet. So here, let me just bring you over here and show you closer. So here I have a 4 by 8 bed, and in this one I only have 6 tomatoes planted. Usually I will plant 8 tomatoes, 4 on the south side, which is the side closest to us, and then 4 on the back side. This one I only did 3 in the front, 3 in the back, because then I have some peppers and other things going over there. So what I like to do then on the south side is just use a simple stake or a pole. So I have stakes that they were actually here when I bought the house. Some nice wood stakes, and then also some old pieces of pipe I'm using here. And then this newer one I actually bought, like, I think that's 3/4 inch conduit. I just bought a bunch at Home Depot. They're really cheap, 10 foot long, and sometimes my tomatoes get really tall, so I like that. Another thing I didn't mention, I only grow indeterminate tomatoes. So those are the type that just keep growing all season and producing fruit until the weather gets too bad. And it'll say on your seed packet what type you have. The other type is determinate, which will grow to a certain size and stop, produce all their fruit at once, almost all at once, and then they'll die. And I don't really like that type. It does work well if you just want to make a whole bunch of salsa all at once, but I grow enough tomatoes. You can see there's another bed. Here's another bed of 8, another bed of 8, another bed of 6. I grow enough tomatoes that we get enough if we wanted to do salsa, we could, and still have more, so we're fine. So what I do on the south side here, I just use the stakes, and I basically single stem the tomatoes. So in other words, I trim off the suckers, and I can show you what I mean by that. Notice I said I basically single stem them. I don't do perfect. You can see here I have 2 stems, right? So this one, it had 2 stems, and they were so big I didn't want to trim one off. So this one I'm going to have 2 stems. Actually, I have that happening a couple times, I'm noticing. But what you can do is just make a single stem, or 2 stems, it doesn't really matter. And then what you do to keep that single stem is you come up as it's growing, and you look at each leaf. So here's a leaf off to the side here, and you look right where that leaf comes off the tomato plant, and then almost always they'll put out what's called a sucker right here, and you can just break this off, and that way it'll be a single stem. And then same thing here, here's another one with that leaf on the other side, and if you just lean it one way and then the other way, they just snap off really nicely. And that way you can have a single stem. I don't think it really does much in terms of production, although I do think single stem probably have less tomatoes, but they might have bigger tomatoes. I don't really know. So again, the reason I single stem them on the south side is so that the sun can shine through easier to my tomatoes there on the north side. So the tomatoes on the north side, you'll notice they're becoming big bushes, and I have them in tomato cages. Those ones I basically don't trim at all, and they grow tomatoes just fine. So that's my simple system. Again, single stem with stakes on the south side, and just let them go and do whatever they want on the north side with tomato cages. Often my tomatoes will outgrow these tomato cages. So then what I'll do is I'll take this conduit, and I will just take some twine, tie it on here, and I'll wrap around like basically the whole bed of tomatoes to keep them from falling over, and that works well for me. Another thing I can tell you about these guys, I kept one of the suckers I broke off. You can actually clone your tomato plants. So this is basically another plant, and if you just put this in a cup of water, maybe about 2 inches deep, like that, it will actually grow new roots, and then you can plant it, and if your season's long enough, that plant will also have tomatoes. So that's another thing that you can do. Let me just take you around real quick. So you can see all these tomatoes. I think this one is called a yellow gooseberry. You can see lots of blossoms throughout the garden. Over here we have our sun golds coming along nicely. I would have to look up in my notes what all the varieties are, but here's the second bed. Single stemming in the front. Oh, this one has a bunch of tomatoes on it, coming along nicely. Looks like they're going to be some big ones. Then more tomatoes over here. I think this is another sun gold. The sun golds just go crazy. And then more tomatoes back here. And yeah, I've used this system for a few years, and it works great for me. So I just thought I would share that. Hope that it's helpful. And that's it. Alright guys, so that's it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope this information was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions about my trellising system. It is a little bit of work. I mean, I go out, I don't know, every few days or at least once a week and make sure to take those suckers off, make sure my tomatoes are inside the cages. The other thing I don't think I mentioned is I tie the single stem tomatoes to their stakes. I like to use like a flagging tape, but you can use whatever you like. But that's it for today. So again, thank you for watching. Comment if you have any questions, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, that always helps us out. We appreciate the support. Alright, I will see you next time. So this is the type of flagging tape that I like to use to tie up the tomatoes. That way it doesn't cut into the stems, and it holds up for the year but comes off really easily in the fall.